The mining colony hung like a dark jewel at the edge of the Orion sector. Its metallic walls glimmered faintly under the distant starlight. Yet inside, the halls were dim and silent. Machines hummed steadily, moving rocks and minerals from one place to another. But the rhythm of the colony was broken by the sound of footsteps echoing against metal floors. Deep within the colony, in a secured wing, sat Valira, an alien woman of extraordinary intelligence and strength, though her body was bound by restraints that limited her movements. Valira's skin shimmered with a subtle glow that reflected her species' natural energy. Her eyes, large and luminous, could see in darkness far better than any human. She was different from the other beings in the colony, and that difference had made her a target. Yet, she endured every day with quiet patience, studying the routines of her captors, noting patterns, and observing every visitor who came near. In her captivity, her mind remained free. The corridors beyond her cell were filled with a dull metallic smell, the tang of machinery, and the occasional sharp scent of mineral dust. From time to time, humans arrived, often small groups of engineers or technicians, who came to repair systems or monitor the extraction processes. Most of them ignored the presence of the alien captives, but Valira had learned that not all humans were the same. She watched their movements, their gestures, and their subtle ways of showing empathy. Among these humans was Eli Rourke, a young engineer with a reputation for solving impossible technical problems. He arrived one morning aboard the colony's small shuttle, carrying tools and equipment needed to repair the failing life support systems in the farthest section of the colony. Eli had grown used to strange situations, yet nothing had prepared him for the first glimpse of Valira. She was sitting quietly, her restraints catching the faint light of the corridor. Though confined, her posture was dignified, and her gaze met his with curiosity, rather than fear. There was something in the way she observed him, a spark of intelligence that immediately caught his attention. Most of the colony's inhabitants had grown weary or dull from their routines, but Valira was alive with awareness. Eli approached cautiously, understanding that any sudden movement could startle or alarm her. He crouched slightly to meet her eyes, studying the restraints and the environment around her. "I can't imagine how difficult it must be here," he said softly. His words were simple, but there was sincerity in his tone. Though he did not yet know how much she understood, he felt a connection. Valira's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in distrust, but in calculation. She had learned to read human expressions over time, noting who could be trusted and who could not. Eli seemed different. His calm demeanor, the careful way he carried his tools, and the faint smile that played at the corners of his mouth suggested he was capable of thinking beyond the obvious. She decided, silently, to test him. The guards who monitored the hallway were few, relying more on cameras and sensors than direct supervision. Valira shifted slightly, testing the limits of her restraints. A faint shimmer of energy passed along her fingers, enough to loosen one of the small fasteners on her chain. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it demonstrated her patience and precision. She wanted Eli to see that she was not helpless, not in mind or spirit. Over the next several days, Eli returned to check on the colony's systems, each visit lasting longer than the last. He spoke to Valira occasionally, asking questions about her experiences, though always carefully. She answered in gestures at first, using subtle movements and signs that he began to understand. Slowly, a silent dialogue formed between them. Through these interactions, Eli learned that Valira was capable of extraordinary reasoning and strategy, and Valira learned that humans could possess empathy and moral strength. Life in the colony continued its harsh rhythm. Valira endured the monotony of labor and the restrictions placed upon her. The other captives, some alien, some human, moved about quietly, fearful of punishment. Valira observed them all, noting their strengths and weaknesses. She understood that survival was not just about escaping physical chains, but also about maintaining hope, intelligence, and patience. One evening, as the dim red lights of the colony flickered with the settling power grid, Eli lingered longer than usual. He watched her with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "You're clever," he said quietly, as if speaking too loudly might draw the attention of the guards. Valera's eyes twinkled with a faint glow. It was the closest she had come to expressing gratitude, and Eli noticed it immediately. The night passed slowly, and in the quiet moments, Valera practiced her telekinetic abilities in secret. She could move small objects without touching them, tools, containers, and even small panels of machinery within reach. These small acts were exercises in control and concentration, preparing her for something larger. She imagined freedom, a concept that had become distant but never forgotten. Her mind raced with possibilities, yet she knew that patience was as important as power. Eli began to observe these subtle actions. His curiosity piqued. Humans were problem solvers by nature, and he saw the signs of intelligence in Valera's behavior. He realized that she was more than a captive. She was a mind capable of strategy, planning, and perhaps even leadership. This realization changed something within him. He no longer saw her merely as a victim. He saw her as a partner, someone whose potential could not be ignored. The tension in the colony increased when the consortium introduced new security measures. Cameras and sensors were upgraded, and guards became more vigilant. Yet, Valera continued to adapt. She learned the timing of patrols, the blind spots in surveillance, and the weak points in restraints. Every small observation, every subtle experiment, was a step toward understanding her environment. It was not rebellion yet, but preparation. Eli, too, began to plan in his mind. He considered the weaknesses of the colony's systems and the possibilities for creating an opportunity for Valera. He knew that one wrong move could jeopardize both their lives. Yet the thought of helping her and of witnessing the intelligence and resilience of a being unlike any he had known motivated him. The days blurred into weeks. Valera's endurance was remarkable. She remained patient, her mind sharp, and her spirit unbroken. The other captives noticed a change in her presence. Though confined, she radiated confidence and quiet strength. Even the guards, unknowingly, respected her in a subtle way. She had become more than a prisoner. She had become a symbol of calm determination amidst the harshness of the colony. One evening, as the sun, or what, passed for a sun in this distant system set behind the jagged mountains of the asteroid colony, Valera's chains clicked softly as she tested them once more. Her fingers brushed the metal, and with a faint surge of her energy, one link shifted. She held her breath, waiting to see if anyone noticed. The corridor remained empty. She smiled faintly to herself. This small victory was not freedom, but it was proof that she could influence her surroundings. Eli arrived that night, tools in hand, but with his mind clearly elsewhere. He observed Valera quietly, sensing that she had grown even more aware of her surroundings. He crouched to her level and whispered, "You're stronger than they realize." She responded with a slight nod, a gesture of understanding and connection. Though words were few, a silent bond formed between human and alien, built on intelligence, patience, and mutual respect. As the night deepened and the hum of the colony's machinery filled the air, Valera felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not the fleeting hope of escape, but a quiet, steady hope that change was possible, that her mind and abilities could find a new path. For the first time, she believed that freedom might not be a dream too far away, and that this human, might be the key to a new beginning. And so, in the shadowed halls of the mining colony, two minds began to align, one human, one alien. In patience, observation, and silent communication, they laid the first stones of a future neither could yet see fully, but both sensed it was coming. Valira settled back against the wall, her eyes reflecting the dim red light. She had endured chains, harshness, and cruelty. But she had also discovered something more important: connection, respect, and a glimpse of what was possible beyond the walls that confined her. The story of her endurance, and of the human who would help her, was only beginning. The colony never truly slept. Even when the lights dimmed and the hum of the machines softened, a quiet rhythm persisted in the walls, a constant reminder of the life and control held within the asteroid's metal skeleton. Valira had learned to move within this rhythm, to measure every step, every sound, every shadow. Patience was her ally, and intelligence her shield. But for the first time in her captivity, she sensed that patience could become action, that observation could turn into opportunity. Eli Rourke had been visiting her more frequently. Each day, he brought small items, tools, equipment, and occasionally, a scrap of food or water left unnoticed by the guards. At first, it was routine maintenance for him, part of his task as an engineer. But gradually, his visits took on a different purpose. He observed Valira's movements, watched how she subtly tested her restraints, and noted how her eyes followed patterns in the colony's surveillance systems. He realized she was not only intelligent, but resourceful. Valira, in turn, had begun responding more overtly. She used subtle gestures, shifting small objects, moving containers just enough for Eli to notice. Sometimes she tapped out patterns against her metal chains, like a secret language. Eli quickly understood these signals. Recognizing the precision and patience behind them, he leaned closer during one of his visits and whispered, "I see what you're doing. You're clever. Much cleverer than they think." Her eyes glimmered faintly, reflecting a spark of energy and approval. She had tested him before, measured his willingness to notice small details. Now she understood that he could recognize subtlety, that he had the kind of mind capable of planning, calculating, and improvising. It was rare to find a human who could think quietly, yet decisively. Over the following weeks, the two developed a careful rhythm. Eli would bring notes and sketches of the colony's systems, highlighting weak points in the security grids, the timing of patrols, and areas where cameras could be temporarily disabled. Valira studied these diagrams with quiet focus, her mind racing to imagine what could be done, how her powers could enhance their chances. One evening, as the colony's red lights flickered, Eli crouched beside her cell, a small tool in hand. "I've been thinking," he said softly. "If we time it right, we can create a small window. Just a few minutes. That's all we need." Valira tilted her head, listening intently. She could sense the precision in his words, the calm determination in his voice. She had endured cruel treatment and confinement for so long that even the smallest plan required careful thought. Yet, something in Eli's presence inspired her to believe that they could do more than simply survive. For the next few days, they practiced their communication in secret. Valira would move objects in patterns, signaling when a corridor was clear, when a guard had shifted position, or when a sensor could be bypassed. Eli refined his tools and sketches, integrating Valira's subtle cues into his engineering notes. Together, they began to form a plan that was not just about escape, but about control. Control over the moment, the environment, and their own fate. One afternoon, Eli arrived to find Valira experimenting with her abilities. Small metal tools floated in a quiet orbit around her, responding to her subtle mental commands. He watched in amazement, realizing that her strength was not merely physical or telekinetic, but intellectual as well. Every movement was calculated, precise, and thoughtful. "You're ready," he said quietly. "When the time comes, we can do this." Valira's eyes glimmered faintly. She had never known a human who could see her potential rather than her captivity. This recognition, this respect, gave her energy beyond what her body could provide. She began to see the possibility of freedom not as a dream, but as a near certainty If only they could act with precision. Nightfall came with the usual chorus of machine hums and soft clicks from distant corridors. The guards moved in predictable patterns, and Valira noted each sound, each shadow, each step. Eli had prepared a series of small, non-intrusive disruptions. Timed lights, minor mechanical errors, and temporary delays in the security grid. These were designed to give them moments of advantage, without raising suspicion immediately. Valira practiced using her powers to manipulate objects silently, preparing for the first real test. She could move small locks, subtly shift sensor panels, and even create diversions by nudging objects to roll across corridors. Every small action had a purpose. Every movement was measured. For the first time, she felt not like a captive but like a participant in something greater. Days turned into a careful rhythm of preparation. They began to anticipate the colony's routines even better than the guards themselves. Valira's observations and Eli's technical knowledge combined into a synergy neither had expected. Where humans relied on tools and analysis, Valira added precision, foresight, and a unique perspective of spatial awareness beyond human capability. Then came the day when the small disruption tests proved successful. Eli had left subtle mechanical hints, tools slightly out of place, lights flickering for mere seconds, but these were enough for Valira to respond. She nudged, shifted, and manipulated, and the system responded. For the first time, she realized the colony could be influenced, that their environment was not absolute. The sense of control was intoxicating, yet measured. That evening, as they met briefly in the shadowed corridor during Eli's routine inspection, he whispered, "Soon, we'll have more than a moment. Soon, we'll have a real chance." Valira's eyes glimmered with a mixture of excitement and caution. She had endured years of restraint, cruelty, and monotony, and she had learned that impatience could be deadly. Yet, the patience she had practiced was finally meeting opportunity. The collaboration between human and alien had created a bridge that could lead to freedom. She began to imagine a larger plan. Not just escape for herself, but a future where she could move freely, make decisions, and even protect others still trapped. The thought of helping those who could not help themselves added a new layer of purpose. Eli, too, recognized the moral dimension of their plan. This was not merely survival. It was justice, compassion, and the demonstration of what humans and aliens could achieve together. The quiet of the night gave them time to communicate in subtle ways. Valira would tap objects in specific patterns, indicating paths that were temporarily free, or areas where sensors could be bypassed. Eli would nod or whisper adjustments, refining the plan as they went. Their collaboration became almost seamless, a dance of minds and abilities that neither had experienced before. One night, Eli stayed longer than usual, observing Valira carefully. "You've endured so much," he said softly, "but you're still strong. Your patience, your intelligence, it's remarkable." Valira's eyes glimmered with a faint, almost shy light. No words were necessary. She had learned to read humans' expressions and tones. And in that moment, she felt a quiet trust. She understood that Eli was not simply a visitor or a helper, he was an ally, someone who saw her as a partner rather than a captive. The days passed in this quiet preparation. Every small success, every tiny manipulation of the colony's systems, built confidence. Valira felt her power growing, her mind sharper, her abilities more precise. Eli observed, recorded, and adjusted, his technical knowledge complementing her innate talents. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. A team capable of influencing the environment around them in ways neither the consortium nor the guards could anticipate. Finally, one evening, a faint flicker in the lights and a subtle shift in the corridor's sound confirmed what they had long suspected. The right moment was approaching. A small window of opportunity had emerged a few minutes during which the patrols shifted, Cameras cycled through a blind spot, and the security grid had a minor glitch. It was enough for them to move cautiously, deliberately, and decisively. Valira's heart, or what passed for one in her species, beat faster with excitement and anticipation. This was the first real step toward freedom. The first tangible moment where patience and planning met opportunity. She glanced at Eli, and though their communication was subtle, the understanding between them was complete. They were ready. And so, in the quiet shadows of the Orion colony, a human and an alien prepared for their first act of defiance. Neither knew exactly how far it would take them, but both understood that it was only the beginning. The spark of rebellion had been lit, small but undeniable, and it would grow into something that could not be contained. For Valira, the days of endurance were giving way to action. For Eli, the calm observation of the colony's routines was evolving into decisive participation. Together, they were no longer prisoner and visitor. They were partners, allies, and co-creators of a new possibility. The spark had been struck. The shadowed halls of the colony would never be the same again. The night had a quiet stillness, broken only by the distant hum of machines and the soft echoes of footsteps far down the corridors. Valira stood in her cell, her senses alert to every movement, every sound, every faint vibration in the metal walls. Tonight was the night they had been waiting for. She could feel the air charged with possibility, the kind of quiet energy that came only when preparation met opportunity. Eli arrived as scheduled, his face calm, but eyes alert. He carried a small toolkit, carefully organized, and a folded map of the colony's corridors. When he reached her cell, he crouched down to her level. "Everything is ready," he whispered. "You've tested your limits. Now it's time to use them." Valira nodded slightly, a subtle movement that conveyed readiness. She could feel the restraints on her wrists and ankles, but she also knew that the combination of her powers and Eli's tools had created a way forward. Every small shift of her chains over the past weeks had prepared her for this moment. The first step was simple yet delicate. Eli used a tiny device to unlock the outer section of her chains, the metal links clicking softly as they separated. Valira's telekinetic energy augmented the process, moving the small pins into place with precision. Within moments, her wrists were free, though a thin collar and a few ankle restraints remained. Even so, the sensation of partial freedom sent a thrill through her. Together, they waited for the patrol shift to change. The guards moved with predictable timing, and Eli had memorized every step of their routine. Valira's keen senses allowed her to detect faint echoes of approaching footsteps long before they rounded corners. When the last guard passed, they moved quietly, slipping into the corridor beyond her cell. The halls of the colony were familiar to Valira, having spent months observing every corner. She guided Eli through narrow passages, around corners, and past silent cameras. She nudged small objects into place to create distractions, rolling a toolbox down a side corridor, nudging a loose panel to produce a faint clatter. Every diversion was minor, but effective, allowing them to pass unseen. They reached the central corridor, where the life support systems pulsed with a steady glow. Here, the risk increased. Sensors lined the walls, and cameras rotated slowly, scanning every angle. Eli knelt and examined a panel. "I can temporarily disable the cameras for about 30 seconds, he said. "That's all we need to pass through." Valira focused her energy, subtly moving her chains so they wouldn't catch on the walls. When Eli triggered the device, the cameras blinked off, and the corridor fell into temporary darkness. Heartbeats measured in seconds, they moved swiftly, each step synchronized with the timing of the disabled systems. As they passed the life support bay, a low alarm flickered briefly on one monitor. A routine check, harmless if handled quickly, but enough to make Eli and Valira tense. She extended her mind subtly, nudging the small mechanical systems to redirect the sensor's attention. The alarm blinked, and then went silent. Eli glanced at her. eyes wide. "That was perfect," he whispered. The next obstacle was the security checkpoint before the shuttle bay. 2 guards were stationed at the entrance, scanning identification tags and monitoring consoles. Valira observed their movements, noting the timing of their attention, the rhythm of their gestures. When the second guard looks at the console, she indicated silently, "You trigger the panel to drop the barrier." Eli nodded, understanding her completely. He pressed a small button on his device, causing the barrier to lower just as the second guard's attention shifted. They moved quickly, slipping through the checkpoint without detection. A soft click behind them confirmed the barrier had reset automatically. Timing, coordination, and observation had worked in their favor. The shuttle bay stretched before them, large and metallic, filled with small transport vessels. Eli led Valira to the smallest craft, one he had tested before. "This one is fast and maneuverable," he explained. "I've adjusted the navigation system to take us out of the colony without triggering alarms." Valira's hands hovered above the controls, sensing their mechanisms and responding instinctively. Her telekinetic energy assisted in fine adjustments, moving levers and buttons with precision. Eli guided her verbally, and together they prepared the shuttle for launch. The hum of the engines began, soft at first and then growing steadily. Valira could feel the vibrations through the floor, through her body, and through the metal of the shuttle. The sense of motion, of freedom beginning, was intoxicating. She glanced at Eli, and though neither spoke, their eyes conveyed the shared exhilaration of the moment. As the shuttle lifted from the colony floor, the lights of the asteroid settlement grew smaller, receding into the distance. The hum of the engines replaced the hum of the machines, and for the first time in her life, Valira felt unbound, unrestrained, and capable of making her own choices. Yet the escape was not without risk. The colony's sensors were sophisticated, and the consortium had dispatched a secondary monitoring system that could detect unusual energy patterns. Valira extended her senses, subtly masking their presence, redirecting energy signals, and creating a small pocket of invisibility in the sensor readings. Eli monitored the controls, making rapid adjustments to altitude and trajectory, his mind perfectly in tune with hers. Minutes passed like hours. The shuttle weaved through the asteroid field surrounding the colony, each movement precise, calculated, and deliberate. Small debris shifted in their path, yet Valira's abilities allowed her to guide the shuttle safely, nudging objects gently away, preventing collisions. Eli's engineering knowledge complemented her telekinesis, turning potential hazards into non-issues. Finally, the colony's lights were a distant glow, and the sensor's reach could no longer detect them. Valira allowed herself a small exhale, the first real moment of relief since her captivity began. Eli smiled, though his eyes remained alert. "We're not out of the woods yet," he reminded her. "But we've cleared the first stage." They drifted in silence for a few minutes, the hum of the engines filling the space between them. Valira felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her mind raced, considering the possibilities ahead. Freedom was no longer a distant dream, it was real, tangible, and within her grasp. Eli broke the silence. "We need to find a safe system, somewhere neutral, where the consortium can't track us immediately." He brought up a map of nearby star systems, highlighting those with weak monitoring or political neutrality. Valira leaned over, her eyes scanning the holographic display. She suggested a route through a dense asteroid belt, where her abilities could help them navigate with precision and avoid detection. Together, they charted a course, combining human engineering skill with alien intuition. Every calculation, every adjustment, reinforced their teamwork. Valira realized that this partnership was more than necessity, it was synergy. Humans and aliens, working together, could achieve something neither could alone. As they moved deeper into space, the first real moment of calm arrived. Stars stretched endlessly around them, and for the first time, Valira felt the vastness of freedom. No walls, no chains, no observers, only the infinite possibilities of the galaxy. Yet, even in this calm, her mind remained alert. She knew the consortium would not give up easily, and the path ahead would require continued skill, patience, and coordination. Eli studied her carefully. "You did amazingly back there," he said quietly. "Your control. Your timing. I've never seen anything like it." Valira's eyes glimmered faintly, acknowledging the compliment, without words. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as a captive, but as an equal, a partner in thought, in strategy, and in purpose. The night passed, and the shuttle moved silently through space, following the route they had charted together. Occasionally, Valira nudged small asteroids or debris with her powers, clearing the path and creating natural cover. Eli adjusted the navigation, anticipating her moves and complementing them with technical precision. Their collaboration had become seamless, almost instinctive. As dawn, or the equivalent light from a nearby star approached, they reached the edge of the asteroid belt. The vast emptiness of space stretched before them, and for the first time, Valira allowed herself a faint smile. They had not only escaped, but they had done so with ingenuity, precision, and mutual respect. Yet the escape was only the beginning. Valira's thoughts turned to others still trapped in the colony, to the injustices she had witnessed, and to the future that now awaited them. Eli seemed to sense her thoughts, meeting her gaze. No words were needed. They both understood that this was more than freedom. It was a chance to create change, to act with intelligence, courage, and integrity. For the first time, Valira felt truly alive. The chains were gone, the cruelty left behind, and the galaxy stretched before her, full of possibilities. With a human by her side who respected her mind and spirit, she knew that nothing, not even the vastness of space, was beyond reach. The shuttle continued its silent journey, carrying them toward safety, adventure, and the next stage of their story. The escape had been successful, but the future promised challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. Valira and Eli had proven what could be achieved through collaboration, patience, and courage, and they were only just beginning. The stars awaited them, endless and bright, and for the first time in her life, Valira felt the true meaning of freedom. The vastness of space stretched endlessly around the shuttle, a tapestry of stars shimmering in every direction. For the first time since her captivity, Valira could breathe freely, without the oppressive walls, the chains, or the constant surveillance of the mining colony. The hum of the shuttle's engines was steady and comforting, a rhythm that blended with the beat of her own thoughts. Eli Rourke sat beside her, eyes scanning the instruments and holographic maps. Though his face was calm, his mind was alert, always anticipating, always calculating. He had learned over the past days that freedom was not just an absence of chains. It was the responsibility to stay alive, to remain clever, and to adapt to every challenge the galaxy could present. Valira's hands hovered above the shuttle's controls, though she didn't need them to act. She let her telekinetic energy flow naturally, feeling the small pulse of the engines, the subtle vibrations of the hull, and even the gravitational pull of nearby celestial bodies. With each movement, she guided the shuttle gently, nudging its course with precision and grace. The craft responded as though it were an extension of her own body. Eli leaned back slightly, watching her work. "You're amazing," he said softly. "I've never seen anyone human or alien handle a shuttle like that." Valira's eyes glimmered faintly, acknowledging the compliment with a subtle tilt of her head. She felt exhilarated not just by the freedom of movement, but by the trust Eli placed in her abilities. He had seen her as an equal, a partner, and that respect had awakened something she had long forgotten: confidence. The first hours of their flight were quiet, almost serene. Valira explored her powers openly for the first time in months. She could lift small objects with ease, manipulate delicate machinery without touching it, and even sense subtle energy fluctuations from the shuttle's systems. It was as though the years of restraint had been training her for this moment, preparing her for the vastness of space and the possibilities it held. Yet freedom was not without its risks. Even as the shuttle glided silently through the void, sensors aboard the colony had detected unusual energy fluctuations. Somewhere far behind them, the consortium had begun to mobilize. Automated patrol drones, small but fast, were dispatched to intercept the shuttle. Eli noticed the first alert on his console, a faint, repeating ping, indicating energy traces matching the shuttle's unique signature. "They're tracking us," he said quietly, eyes narrowing. "We need to move carefully, but we can use the asteroid field ahead for cover." Valira focused, feeling the energy of the nearby asteroids, the pull of gravity, and the positions of the rocks in three-dimensional space. She guided the shuttle with finesse, weaving between massive chunks of rock with precision that Eli could only admire. "Perfect," he whispered, adjusting navigation thrusters to complement her telekinetic guidance. The drones appeared as tiny, blinking lights in the distance, scanning for heat signatures and energy emissions. Eli activated the shuttle's camouflage systems, designed to blend their vessel into the void. Valira enhanced the effect subtly, using her energy to bend light around the shuttle and reduce the chances of detection. Together, they became a moving shadow, invisible against the starry background. As they navigated the asteroid belt, Valira and Eli began discussing their next steps. "We need a safe system," Eli said, pointing to a cluster of neutral planets on his map. "Somewhere off the grid, where we can rest and plan our next move." Valira nodded, her mind already calculating routes and potential obstacles. "We should avoid main trade lanes," she suggested. "The consortium monitors them closely. There are smaller, unmapped routes we can take, though the navigation will be tricky." Eli smiled faintly. "Tricky is our specialty," he said, "and it seems I have the perfect co-pilot. Every tricky, 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 and it seems I have the perfect co-pilot." Their partnership had evolved beyond necessity. Valira's abilities complemented Eli's knowledge, and his trust in her created an environment where she could explore her full potential. The more she moved freely, the more confident she became, and with each passing hour, her powers grew sharper and more precise. Hours into their journey, the first real test arrived. The consortium's patrol drones had found the outer edge of the asteroid belt and began converging on the shuttle. They were small but fast, equipped with sensors and minor defensive mechanisms. Valira felt the pulse of their approach long before the consoles could register it. Her hands moved instinctively, manipulating the shuttle's energy fields to create minor diversions. A nearby rock shifted slightly, reflecting sensor scans away from their position. Eli adjusted the engines, weaving the shuttle in a sudden arc that the drones did not anticipate. "You're incredible," he said, voice tight with concentration. "Keep this up, and we'll lose them." Valira's mind worked like a machine, analyzing the position of each drone, the strength of their sensors, and the optimal angles for diversion. She nudged the shuttle subtly, and the drones' paths shifted, following phantom signals that led them into harmless collisions with small asteroids. Their pursuit was clever, but it had underestimated the synergy of human ingenuity and alien power. Once the immediate threat passed, they took a moment to catch their breath. Valira's chest glimmered faintly with energy, a sign of both exertion and exhilaration. Eli glanced at her, admiration evident in his eyes. "You handled that perfectly," he said. "I don't know anyone else who could have done it." Valira allowed herself a faint smile. For the first time in her life, she felt proud not just of surviving, but of excelling, of mastering her abilities, and of using them to protect herself and her partner. The long years of endurance had prepared her for this moment, and she realized that patience, observation, and intelligence could triumph even against overwhelming odds. As they continued toward the neutral system, they discussed what they would do once they arrived. Valira wanted to find others like her, creatures and beings who had been held against their will. Eli suggested that they focus first on rest and resupply. But he understood her desire to help. "We'll find a way," he said. "But we need to stay sharp. The consortium won't give up easily." We lying subsettered. 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 The journey also gave them time to talk about themselves. Valira shared stories of her species, the cultures she had known, and the knowledge she had gained. Eli spoke of his childhood on a distant planet, the fascination with machines and stars that had led him to become an engineer. They discovered shared values, curiosity, resilience, and a belief that intelligence and courage could overcome adversity. The shuttle passed through a dense field of comets and minor asteroids, their icy tails reflecting starlight like faint ribbons. Valira guided the vessel with elegance, using her powers to adjust its path in ways no mechanical system could match. Eli monitored the instruments, occasionally making fine adjustments to engine output and trajectory. They were a team in perfect harmony, each action complementing the other. As they neared the edge of the neutral system, Valira sensed a subtle change in the space around them, a faint signal that indicated the consortium's distant surveillance had not been completely eliminated. Eli detected the same reading on his instruments. "They're still trying to find us," he said quietly. "But we're almost safe." Valira nodded, focusing her energy to mask their signature further. She could feel the tension in the shuttle ease as they entered the relative calm of the neutral system. The stars were brighter here, unpolluted by industrial lights or the constant monitoring of powerful corporations. For the first time, Valira felt truly free, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. They located a small, uninhabited planet with a breathable atmosphere and mild gravity. Eli guided the shuttle into a low orbit, and Valira used her powers to stabilize the landing, adjusting for surface anomalies and ensuring a smooth descent. When the shuttle finally touched down, the metal hull reflected the soft glow of the planet's twin suns. Valira stepped out first, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet. She stretched her limbs freely, savoring the sensation of freedom after months of confinement. Eli followed, carrying their supplies, and looked around the quiet landscape. "We've made it," he said softly. "For now, we're safe." They explored the surrounding area, finding natural shelters and sources of fresh water. Valira's abilities allowed them to detect subtle environmental hazards, and Eli used his engineering skills to reinforce their temporary base. Together, they prepared for the days ahead, knowing that the consortium might still pursue them, but confident that they could face whatever came next. As night fell, Valira and Eli sat beneath the twin stars, looking up at the vast expanse of the galaxy. The silence was filled with possibility, adventure, and the promise of a new beginning. Valira felt a sense of hope she had not known in years. She could move freely, think freely, and plan freely. The years of chains and cruelty were behind her, replaced by trust, respect, and the knowledge that she could shape her own destiny. Eli looked at her, admiration and trust in his eyes. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "There's a lot more ahead, but we'll face it together." Valira smiled faintly, feeling the truth of his words. Together, they had proven that patience, intelligence, and courage could overcome even the most controlled and oppressive circumstances. And together, they would explore the stars, free at last, ready to face whatever challenges and wonders the universe had to offer. The new horizon was theirs. Freedom had been earned through perseverance, trust, and partnership. And Valira knew that this was only the first step toward a larger purpose. The galaxy awaited, full of possibilities, mysteries, and adventures yet to come. And with a human by her side who respected her mind and spirit, she was ready to embrace them all. The twin suns of the neutral planet shone warmly over the small clearing where Valira and Eli had set up their temporary base. For the first time in months, Valira could move freely without concern for chains or eyes watching her. The fresh air, the gentle breeze, and the soft rustle of alien vegetation were almost overwhelming in their beauty. Yet despite the peaceful setting, Valira knew that their freedom was fragile. The consortium would not abandon its pursuit so easily. Eli was at the shuttle, checking its systems and ensuring their instruments remained hidden from any distant surveillance. "We need a plan," he said quietly, turning toward Valira. "The consortium is powerful, but they underestimate us. And they definitely underestimate what you can do." Valira's eyes glimmered with energy, a faint but unmistakable sign of her telekinetic readiness. "I have ideas," she said simply. She had spent the journey here refining her abilities, considering not just survival, but the possibilities for justice. The years of observation, endurance, and careful planning had prepared her for this moment. She would not only protect herself, she would protect others. Their first step was intelligence. Valira and Eli used the shuttle's communication systems to quietly scan for consortium transmissions. They detected several weak signals, encrypted channels used to track escaped captives and monitor neutral systems. Using her powers to manipulate subtle energy patterns, Valira intercepted and decoded fragments of messages. Eli recorded the information, noting the locations of small outposts, patrol routes, and the names of commanders involved. "Look at this," Eli said, pointing at the map projected from the shuttle's console. "They're still searching for you, but these outposts are scattered. If we move smartly, we can free others before they even know what hit them." Valira considered this, feeling a surge of determination. "We'll need precision," she said. "Every movement, every action, must be calculated. The captives cannot risk harm, and we cannot allow the consortium to anticipate us." Their first mission was a small research outpost, one of the least guarded locations, yet still a place where beings were confined against their will. Valira guided the shuttle with her telekinetic skill, weaving between asteroid belts and using her abilities to mask their energy signature. Eli adjusted thrusters and navigation, ensuring the course was smooth and undetectable. Together, they were a perfect team. Human ingenuity combined with alien precision. When they arrived, the outpost was quiet, almost eerily so. Valira and Eli approached cautiously, scanning for sensors and security mechanisms. Valira extended her senses, feeling the faint energy traces of the imprisoned beings inside. With a small mental push, she gently lifted the locks and doors, moving the mechanical restraints without damage. The prisoners, various alien species, all weary and frightened, looked at her in amazement. Valira spoke softly, her voice calm and authoritative. "You are free. Follow carefully, and you will be safe." Eli helped guide them to the shuttle, explaining routes and encouraging calm. The rescued beings moved tentatively at first, then with growing confidence, as they realized the sincerity of Valira's promise. For the first time, some had hope that they could leave captivity behind. The return journey was tense. Though the outpost was small, sensors began to flicker, and alarms sounded faintly, triggered by automated systems rather than human guards. Valira and Eli worked together, creating subtle diversions and energy pulses that masked their movements. No one was harmed, no alarms fully alerted, and the group reached the neutral planet safely. Once on the planet, Valira guided the new arrivals to temporary shelters she had scouted, ensuring food, water, and safety. Eli assisted with technology and supplies, creating secure spaces and reinforcing natural shelters. For the first time, Valira saw the joy of helping others experience the freedom she had fought to achieve. Over the next days, they planned further missions. The consortium remained unaware of their exact location, and Valira's abilities allowed them to move silently and efficiently. Each rescue reinforced their confidence, each success proving that intelligence, patience, and teamwork could overcome even the most oppressive systems. During these operations, Valira and Eli spoke often about the meaning of their journey. Humans have a way of looking beyond the immediate, Valira observed. Even in captivity, you saw my potential, not just my restraints. Eli smiled faintly. We do what we can. Intelligence, courage, and care, sometimes that's enough. Valira considered this. She had endured chains, cruelty, and monotony. Yet those experiences had sharpened her mind and patience. The combination of her resilience and Eli's ingenuity had created a force neither the consortium nor the confines of the galaxy could easily overcome. Their successes began to attract attention in more positive ways. Word of liberated beings spread quietly through neutral systems, creating small networks of allies and supporters. Each rescue operation was executed with precision, leaving no trace for the consortium to exploit. Valira's reputation grew among those who had suffered, and the presence of a human partner inspired hope that intelligent, moral beings could work together across species. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the horizon, Eli and Valira sat atop a ridge, watching the sky deepen into shades of blue and purple. The rescued beings had gathered below, preparing for a communal meal and sharing stories of hope. You've done more than I imagined, Eli said quietly, watching her eyes glimmer with faint energy. You've changed lives. Valira allowed herself a small smile. I could not have done it alone, she replied. Your knowledge, your patience, your trust, these gave me the chance to act. Together, we created something larger than ourselves. It was in that moment that Valira realized the true power of their partnership. Freedom was not just the absence of chains, it was the ability to act, to influence, and to create a future where intelligence, courage, and moral strength mattered. Humans had given her more than safety. They had shown her the meaning of collaboration, respect, and hope. The next challenge came when distant consortium patrols began to close in on the neutral system. Valira detected their approach through subtle energy fluctuations, while Eli tracked communications from afar. They coordinated quickly, planning routes to avoid detection and creating diversions using small drones and asteroids to mask the shuttle's movements. The escape from these patrols was a demonstration of everything they had learned. Valira's powers moved obstacles, masked signals, and guided the shuttle with finesse. Eli adjusted instruments, calculated angles, and ensured that every maneuver complemented her abilities. Together, they became a force that the consortium could not anticipate, their combined intelligence and courage turning a potential danger into a successful evasion. With each mission, Valira's confidence grew. She learned not only to navigate space, but to inspire and lead others. The rescued beings began to follow her guidance willingly, recognizing her skill, patience, and fairness. Eli remained her trusted partner, advising, calculating, and supporting her as they worked together. The galaxy had become a place of possibility rather than fear. In the final weeks, Valira made a decision. She would not remain hidden forever. She would confront the consortium publicly, exposing their cruelty and demonstrating that intelligence, courage, and unity could triumph. Eli agreed, understanding that their actions could change the galaxy's perception of power, morality, and cooperation. The Interstellar Council, a neutral governing body overseeing trade and disputes between systems, welcomed them cautiously. Valira presented her findings, detailing the consortium's exploitation and oppression. Her presence, radiant, with controlled energy and calm authority, commanded attention. Eli supported her, explaining technical details and highlighting the precision, ingenuity, and moral strength that had enabled their escape. The council deliberated carefully, recognizing the evidence and the moral imperative. The consortium's operations were dismantled in stages, its influence reduced, and the liberated beings were granted protection and aid. Valera and Eli's actions became a symbol of intelligence, courage, and partnership between species. In the quiet aftermath, Valera walked beneath the twin suns of the neutral planet, feeling the solid ground beneath her feet. She had endured chains and cruelty, yet she had emerged not just free, but empowered. She could choose her path, explore the galaxy, and assist those still in need. Eli walked beside her, a constant ally, partner, and friend. "This is the beginning," Valera said quietly, gazing at the horizon. "Not just for me, but for everyone who can benefit from hope, intelligence, and courage." Eli nodded. "And we'll face it together. Whatever comes next, we'll meet it with the same strength that brought us here." The stars stretched endlessly above them, a universe full of challenges, wonders, and possibilities. Valera felt a thrill of excitement and peace, knowing that she could shape her destiny, help others, and explore the galaxy with a human who respected her mind, her abilities, and her spirit. For the first time, she felt complete freedom not just from chains, but from limitation. Humanity had shown her that intelligence, courage, and empathy could change the course of lives and worlds. Together, human and alien had forged a future built on trust, ingenuity, and hope. And so, the alien woman who had endured chains and cruelty stepped into the vastness of space with a heart full of strength, a mind sharpened by endurance, and a spirit ready for adventure. Her journey had begun, and with it, a new era of freedom, unity, and possibility stretched across the stars.